Hello, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for all those lovely comments all the time on YouTube. You're great. And thanks for watching. So, Svitlana, what are your smart moves today?
In today's lesson, I wanted to explore the topic of initiative. So, players who are good at creating and maintaining initiative usually end up with more attacking opportunities and get more decision power of which direction the game goes. So it is a pretty important skill, I would say. Would you say you're good at it?
That's a very good question. I wouldn't know. I guess people say, since I'm an attacking, a sacrificing player, I'm also the one. I think I'm not good at it. I love taking the initiative. I love taking I would give 2 pawns for the initiative, but I'm not sure if I'm good with it because otherwise I would have a higher rating.
No, but in the recent tournament, I don't know if you've heard the Tata Steel tournament, there have been some games that I think will help us understand this topic even better.
Excellent.
And we'll take a look at a few. So the first one, it's Giri against Gukesh. It's a pretty big game that maybe people have heard of already. Lately, I'm choosing games from the recent events. So this one, it was a pretty spectacular game. Do you know how it ends?
Yeah, I know how it ended. I'm a big fan of the little Indian faction. I'm not little, but the young Indian faction. That's what I wanted to say. I love.
Which one of them do you think has more chances of world champion title? There's always this debate. Which one of the three of them?
So now, of course, Gukesh has a terrible run, but he will come back, and Prak has good chances too, and Arjun is I think I cannot tell. It's so hard because they're all taking turns in being the best. For once it was Prague. Everybody was like, oh, Prague is going to be and then Gukesh had this phenomenal tournament, and then Arjun had an amazing tournament as well, beat Carlsen even and stuff like that. I think Gukesh too. Yeah, well, so it's they just take turns in being awesome. So probably all three will fight for the title at one point. That would be cool.
Yeah, that would be cool. So,
yeah, by the way, yes, so Giri won, unfortunately.
Giri won, yeah.
Quickly, yeah. I like Giri too, but yeah.
Yeah, so since you might have seen the end, I'll start the game from the beginning so that we look a bit more at how it even got there and how to build up initiative like that to get to play these beautiful tactics at the end. So the game started with the Rogozin defense. That can be defined as a cross opening between maybe the Nimzo and the Queen's Gambit declined. So it starts Black wants to play the Nimzo, bishop b4 is the Nimzo Indian move, but of course there's still d5 present on the board, and this structure looks like a Queen's Gambit declined. This opening is really reliable for Black, and many players playing with White try to avoid it sometimes by not playing knight c3 so early on.
Yeah, it's very, very straightforward, the moves for Black, and there's a couple of moves which are almost forced as far as I know. So yeah, that is nice for Black.
Yeah, so now White has a lot of options as well on how to react. The most popular move for White is bishop to g5, and that's what Giri ended up playing in his game, and this move keeps up the tension. Another alternative, there's of course a lot more. Another one that's lately on the rise is queen to a4, because it's a more forcing line. So now the only way for Black to keep the bishop is knight c6. And I like this because it limits Black's options so that they cannot play c5 that easily later, which is usually a pretty dangerous move to deal with, and then the center gets opened up. So it could lead to positions like this, for example, and pretty solid. It says equal. I would probably choose White too, just because of piece activity. But that's one of the ways that probably I would play against Rogozin, but bishop g5 is the move that keeps the tension. And after h6, White chose to take the knight and make this exchange. So are you a bishop or a knight fan. What would you do? You normally make this trade, or are you like to keep your bishops?
Often I try to not think about it too much, but I cannot help it. I'm a huge fan of the knights. They're
Me
so
too.
special. They're like the most special piece in the whole chess game, in my opinion. They can
I
jump. I mean,
agree.
how cool is that? This superpower.
Yeah, I agree. I like knights. But, oftentimes we do talk about to the bishop pair advantage, and that's kind of what black has going for their position now. And instead of that, white has a really good bishop, is going to have a really good light squared bishop, and of course advantages of their own. So black also often in these positions and in the Nimzo, they try to make this trade of knight for bishop here, and that's one of the key ideas in the Nimzo. And then white keeps playing with doubled pawns, but I would say not as much here in the Rogozin, because unless they're forced, so unless white spent a move playing a3 or something like that, then black is not going to do it just yet. They kind of delay it.
Okay.
Unless it's necessary. So we're soon going to get to the middle game part. So far just developing moves. Now white castle.
I need to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Let's think that I would have never played an opening like this. Like d4, c4. I'm just an e4 player. But if I mean, the moves are very straightforward. There's, some moves which are just very natural. And I think Carlsen is a big, like a big participant of going, hey, either you really go study all the openings or you just play the best or most logical moves. If I would like, an opponent has prepared for me against e4, and now I'm trying a d4 and they're playing like this, does it absolutely require necessary skills to know the opening well, or is a lot of this happening very naturally? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? I
I
think I
think so,
didn't explain it
yes.
very well, but yeah.
I think so. So I would say that for some openings, it is absolutely necessary to know something. Or like it would make it a lot easier for you to know the theory.
Yeah.
And then there's others where a lot of moves are good. And Queen's Gambit decline, these positions, normally I would say they're rather slow. And although it does help a lot to know where the pieces go, and it will make you like spend less time and like less doubting yourself, I think you could get away with just playing normal moves and having a good tactical vision, and that should be enough. But there's other openings where, I don't know, if you were trying to play a Najdorf, I would say, then for both colors, I would say it is
Yes.
really a lot more dangerous not to know
Well,
the theory.
yeah, absolutely. Yes, Najdorf is a very good example. And I just remember another example, of course, would be King's Gambit, right? And
Yeah.
it just happened in this tournament that Tabatabai, who's probably the strongest in his masters, lost a piece after a couple of moves in the King's
Wow.
Gambit. Yeah, it was like, and he still won. That's even
Wow,
more
I didn't
crazy.
see that one. Yeah.
Yeah. That went all around Twitter. It was the most posted game, it seems.
But if you do want to like, if you're an e4 player and you're trying to like switch to d4 and trying to not learn too much theory, then there's always the London,
Yeah,
where
that's very
you
good
just learn it
advice.
once where the pieces go, and they go there all the time.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, excellent. Thank you. Okay, let's continue.
So then after c takes d4, the opening is over, position is normal, and there's no huge advantage in development for either of the sides. So how here would you take over the initiative? And what are the options that you see here for white?
Oh, it's already happening. Well,
Yeah.
yeah. So knight e4 comes to mind because
Yeah.
I will attack the queen. I don't necessarily have to take back. Also, the knight is not pinned, so I think it's a good move. And that gives immediate initiative because, well, we might move the knight again if the queen moves to g or f, f5 or g6, but then it's in a better position. Okay, yeah, that's my turn.
Exactly. So knight e4 was the move here, and this is how this is where you see which side takes the initiative, right? White could have just recaptured like that or
Hmm.
recaptured like that, and position would have been normal anyway. But as Giri was ambitious, he wanted to make a few more useful moves before he recaptured.
Okay.
And this
Interesting.
sequence like might seem like not insignificant, but if you notice these couple of moves, they did help to push the black pieces back, and that's these details are exactly what initiative builds on
Hmm.
and how it gets decided. So now after rook d8, once again, what are some plans that you think you would pursue here? It doesn't need to even be moves, but just kind of plans, because you should recognize this pawn structure. And is there anything you remember about this pawn structure?
Ah, the isolated pawn.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, you taught me brilliantly. It was one of my favorite lessons, to tell you the
yeah.
truth. It was about the isolated pawn, and I forgot everything.
Can
Not
always
everything,
rewatch it.
but I think it is maybe good to, well, we could exchange it, but it has some power if we can defend it well. I'm looking at something funky, which is the queen going to c2,
Hmm.
attacking on c8 if black is not quick enough. Because it would be a bold sacrifice, but it looks nice to me. But yeah,
Hmm.
that's my thought, my initial thought.
Hmm.
But repeat the lesson of the isolated pawn, please.
Yeah, so um the isolated queen pawn is a very like special pawn structure that's also one of the most popular pawn structures that occurs, especially in the queen's gambit and those type of openings, but not only. And here the d4 pawn could either be a strength or a weakness. So usually, White's plan is to bring pieces to the center and potentially start an attack on the king side. That's what the isolated pawn predisposes to, because White has a bit more space, like squares for the pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And for example, something like this is very common, where the queen and the bishop somehow make this battery and then just start an attack. And that's White's general plans. And then for Black, they try to usually attack the pawn on d4 as much as possible, and to potentially go into like not exactly an endgame, but maybe trade some minor pieces so that this pawn is better to attack with, and so that White's attack doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
So the IQP lesson is, of course, a lot longer than that, but it's one of my favorite topics to teach as well, because
Mm-hmm.
it's very common structure.
Yeah, you've
So
done good thing with that, definitely.
so the move Giri played is not something too typical. So I would probably go with something like queen d3, or queen c2 was also good. But he went rook c2. So
Oh,
the reason why is that I think to he wanted his rooks to go on the e file, but then like rook e1 is not possible for now, and he just wanted to like double, but just do it in this way.
okay. Wait and see. Yeah,
Yeah, so this is a pretty like not typical
funny.
maneuver, but I guess he thought, well, like the rook doesn't have anything better to do anyway, so
Mm-hmm.
it will just be here for now. Now your move with queen c2 is coming. So
A
of
bit
course
late,
we're
but yeah.
yeah, but the queen still wants to go there. Bishop b6, so black is following that plan of attacking the d4 pawn. That's where their counterplay
Mm-hmm.
lies. And white plays rook f to e1. So that's the critical
Wow.
moment of the position. And white has set up a nice trap. So since if you know the game, you'll know which trap it is.
I don't know I haven't watched it at
Okay.
all, but I just know the result. So
Okay, so we can solve the tactic together then.
nice.
So in the game, black played king to h8, But we also need to calculate, I think the first thing to calculate is the bishop to d4. What happens if black does take this pawn that we've sacrificed?
Yeah, that is interesting. What
So if you
will
haven't seen it
happen?
before, I think the move could be pretty difficult, but there's only
There's
only
only
so
so
many
many
pieces.
moves.
Yeah.
That is interesting. Well, there's a lot of pieces looking at the pawn on e6, but I don't see yet that it is that. Oh, is it? Oh, what is happening here? So what happens if okay, that is very, very, very over the top again. So what happens if the knight on e4 goes to g5, threatening?
You got it.
Ha, nice. Because there's so I don't know how, but there's so many pieces looking at e6 as well. So I just think this is enough. But I
That's
would have to
exactly how
calculate. Yeah.
No, that's exactly how you get to this conclusion, is
Huh.
that you you look at the weaknesses, that sure we're trying to attack the king, and that this e6 is looking a bit weak with all the rooks looking there. And then how can we take advantage of that? And this is exactly how. Your thought process was good. So here, of course, we don't take this bishop, because if we do, then we're kind of diminishing our attacking power, and then we sacrifice the pawn for nothing. And knight e to g5 is perfect. So now after, let's say h takes to g5, what was your plan?
Yeah, I'm not sure yet, but let's just try out. Let's try out. Well, there's only two choices basically, so let's take with the rook on e6 and then with the other rook, I would say.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's the tactic. So rook takes and then rook takes, and no matter where the queen goes, there is a problem. So something gets lost, or even a checkmate.
Or even checkmate because of double check, yeah.
Rook e8 would be a checkmate. The king can't go here, and double check, usually pretty difficult to defend against. So there was not really any other defense for black either. If they play, anything else to defend against a checkmate, a bunch of tactics could follow. I don't know even which one. I think both of them work. Let's say knight
that
f7.
looks very, very, very nice.
And that looks over. So this is what would have happened. This is the point between Giri's trap and Giri's rook e1 little sacrifice. So black, I assume, saw these ideas and played king h8.
I have to admit that because the king went to h8, I got an idea about how this might go, because I thought first, okay, this is to avoid a check. Wait a second, how and why and what? So,
yeah. No, but still, that's still a good way to solve it. So black's only defense was actually to play bishop d5, because then all of these sacrifices wouldn't work. So they would have to see in advance that this was happening. But still, it's pretty difficult to know. It looks like black defended with king h8, but question is, will the sacrifice still work now?
Yeah, let's take a look. Knight going to g5. What will happen? Black takes.
Yeah. If they don't take, same thing, right? If they don't take, let's just.
Well, I guess we can just take, yeah.
And yeah, it looks very good. Looks like there's checkmate soon. So yeah, taking is of course the main variation.
But now, we have to reposition our queen into a better spot. Yeah, okay, that's working. So let's take on e6 again with the
rook. Exactly. It still works here. Yeah. Still went for it, and it's still good. So this is exactly how the game went.
Yeah. Oh, really? Oh my god.
Yeah, this tactic is how the game went. Well, black didn't really have much choice right after right after they played king h8, everything else is forced. So this was the big tactic of this game. So at this point, still, of course, black will try to hang on and play queen e6, and it's still not over. There's still a few things. So
Yeah, this is actually quite annoying. If I would be white, I would feel like, oh no, now I
yeah,
have
you
to.
felt like you almost had it, and
Yeah,
then suddenly they
and then
take.
now I have to go through all of this. There's so many pieces left still, and like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, yeah, that's what happens sometimes in attacks, is that like the side that sacrifices later wins a queen, but then it turns out that there's actually enough material,
Yeah.
and that's where you get the imbalances, and then it's just a complete other game.
Yeah, no wonder
So,
your Fritz trainer is so popular. Material imbalances. It really is a theme which is coming up so often, much more often than you would ever
mhm,
expect. And there's too little talk about it. So you really hit the sweet
yeah,
spot there.
it's a really hard one because it's like there's more even like exceptions than rules
Yeah.
because it's always so different. But yeah, I did explain at least some common rules that I
Yes.
knew. Maybe there's more.
Yeah,
So
perhaps. Yeah.
this one, this one, there's two rooks and a bishop for a queen and two pawns. I really like this chess-based function that like it tells you on the bottom which how many.
Oh, yeah, I cannot see this because our video is
Yeah.
covering it. Yes.
But I do like that function. So um so here black now took bishop f3 and
Mm-hmm.
well, white didn't recapture, although they could have. This would have been fine as well, but white played even better.
What?
Queen
Well, oh
f5.
yeah, yeah, okay. Queen f5. I thought like, yeah, Queen f5 is actually even better because Queen g6 doesn't checkmate, but Queen f5 gives the threat of
Yeah,
checkmate.
that's true.
That's
So
so
queen
brutal.
h3 is the threat. So it might look like white doesn't even have enough material left because there's only queen and bishop left, and somehow you have to checkmate with those. But they're lucky that this king is in a really like bad situation. So
Yes.
queen and bishop do have like good power and checkmating ideas here together. So that's why this is so far working and so far still winning for white, but there is just one more trick. So black is going to have to give up their bishop. There's no way around it. So they do it in this way, so that queen h3, there's bishop h7, so they'll still give it up, but get out of that threat. And now rook d4, and white almost made it, but there's still one more important move left. Where will you go?
I will go to e2 with the queen to avoid being checkmated.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that wasn't right.
That wasn't right, actually. That was the trick. That's what I was trying to trick you in. Queen e2 actually loses after g4. And the reason why is that there's no more like that there's no more checkmate ideas.
Okay.
So, you know, if your queen moves, then you're also checkmated with rook d1. So you need to spend a move on, I don't know, something, let's say g3. And then if you do that, then I also got enough time to like develop something. So like the knight comes in, or like
Wow.
the rook is gonna come in.
So what else? Then go back. I didn't see anything else. Okay, let me check for a second. Well, I just see. Well, there are a couple of more moves. Okay. But Queen f3 looks very tempting.
Yeah. And that's the better version
Oh,
of queen e2. Because, well, there is a big
imagine.
difference actually,
Yeah.
because now from e2, your queen wasn't making threats, it was only making one threat on h5,
Yes.
and this queen makes both of them on h5 and on f8, which is a really good timing because you need to make it work before black's piece is all developed. So that's how the game ended, that the queen invaded on this side, and well, a funny move, bishop c2. A lot of things could have won, but this one is nice. So basically now there's queen f5, there's this bishop defends against checkmate as well, and the game just ended because there
Yeah.
was no defense.
Wow. Yeah, very impressive.
So Queen
Anish
H8.
Giri.
Queen H8 also a move. So yeah, so that was the big sacrifice here was definitely knight to G5, and it combines a lot of these ideas with the checkmate on H7 with the weak spot on F7 and E6. So very typical sacrifice ideas, and it all came together really nicely. And it was also the only winning plan here as well. So it's a classic tactic to solve.
Nice. Okay, well done, well done. I still hope that Gukesh will win 3 to 4 games and come back and end in the midfield.
Yeah, do you want to see another game that
Yes,
will teach us a
please.
bit about initiative?
Let's go for it.
Okay, so I decided to be fair and take one from the other section.
And there's Jergus Pechac, who made the King's Gambit against Tabatabai. The poor guy, Pechac, I think he lost every game almost, or one draw at least. So yeah, it's not fair. I remember this is going to be a crazy game too, because it was mentioned as well. But I don't know about it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah. Yeah, so this game was also pretty interesting, and it included some tactics that are a really good practice, and also an interesting opening. So
Okay.
Not as interesting as the King's Gambit, I would say, but it was it looked interesting to me. It was this is Wamerdam against Pechac, as you've said. So it began with the Ruy Lopez, and it was an unusual Ruy Lopez because black went knight g to e7 here.
That is unusual.
So that's not popular at all, but lately, like, it has been played by top players sometimes. So I think it's because the Ruy Lopez is one of the most played openings at top level that everyone likes to deviate a bit and to make it a bit more interesting game and not just play the exact same main lines all over again to surprise their opponent. Of course, the mainstream lines are a6 or knight f6. These are the lines that we've all seen before, but knight e7 I think is pretty unique.
I think I would be happy if somebody plays this against me as white.
Knight c3, you'll be even more surprised at the next move, knight g6.
Yeah, I've seen something like that.
So that's a deviation once again, but it has some ideas of its own. And when I looked at this move, I looked at the Mega Database 2023, and I saw like maybe 200 games there in total. And many top players have tried it in 2022, which means that maybe someone's engine found something somewhere that makes this interesting, you know? So maybe it's a new trend with the black pieces.
How funny. That's great. Okay.
So, but of course, not the main line, just a deviation. Simple ideas that just the knight wants to come here. That's where the knight often goes anyways in these positions, but it's just a bit unusual to do it this way. As white, the opponent was probably not prepared, or maybe wanted to get the opponent into a more unknown territory and went bishop c4.
Bishop c4 is my number one move here as well, because out of a sudden, out of nowhere, f7 is freaking vulnerable. So black just has to react a little bit. Has to play a little bit more careful. Cannot play something like b6, bishop b7, or
Yeah, well, d4 is the more popular way to proceed, most typical way.
Okay.
But of course, if black prepared this line, then they would know it. So, so maybe just
d4 is another good option, I guess. Yes.
And now this is where kind of the interesting part to me started. What would your plan be here as white? So now there's no longer d4.
This is
so what would you do?
It's a fantastic example you've chosen, probably because of the initiative is what we're talking about. And one of the greatest things about the initiative, which I love the most, is to try to stop the opponent from castling, which is absolutely annoying if it's working. So what I see here for white is if white makes good enough moves, black doesn't have time to castle, and this can be annoying. So yeah, one of the moves I would think of, I mean, it's like almost a computer move, is h4.
Mhm.
And then I think it is a bit too early to sacrifice, but still, d4 goes into the Max Lange attack. I've played this
Mhm.
many times as well. Yes, don't know.
H4 is perfect. That's
h4 is
exactly what was
perfect. Okay,
played. Yeah. So whenever you see a knight on like g6 or on g3,
exactly.
very natural to think of such moves like h4. So here it is also the best, I would say, and that's what White played in the game. So you
Good.
are right about stopping the opponent from castling. It's a really important part of the initiative.
Hmm.
And this pawn can go really, really far here if it gets to h5 and h6. So that would be really unpleasant.
Yeah.
Give white a good position. So black in the game did stop it by playing h6. So prevents the pawn from going to h6, not to h5, because normally, like, you have to also be really careful about playing such moves because that just allows things like knight g5, which are
Yes.
even worse.
Even
So
worse, exactly.
h6 saved at least from one of these ideas.
Hmm.
So now white decided to wait with h5 a bit. It wasn't the pawn isn't going anywhere anymore. So instead they went knight to d5, just activating a piece and um,
Nice.
putting it on an outpost.
Yeah, and it's
Not
so yeah, it's super. Oh God, White is what a beautiful game so far. Yeah. So I really wonder what the best their theory for Black is. That's a lot of people tried this in
yeah,
2022, but for me, White looks okay. It's probably completely equal, of course, but I love White's position here. It's just me.
yeah, no, me too. It's probably it isn't that good for white as it looks, but yeah, just visually, I would say that white is gaining initiative. And whenever
Well,
you do have it, you can also solidify it with a strong center, and that's what white tries to do. So that's why they move the knight so that there could be some action in the center here. So black did castle. We didn't prevent them from castling. So what would you play next here?
well, that's very nice that H6 is already looking at us from afar. So maybe
Yeah.
we can. Ah, gosh. I mean, look, it can't knight f6 just work. Give a check there. Is this too early? Maybe. We have to calculate. But this
Mm-hmm.
would be so. Yeah, we have to open up D, the D file first, and I would actually sacrifice a pawn with D4.
Okay, so you would play d4 and then not take it back?
Yeah,
And then do what?
I'm not sure. I have to calculate. I would probably give a check on f6 and then take the pawn on h6, get the knight to g5 and the queen to h5 and checkmate.
Mhm. So you have the right collection of ideas, so let's just bring them
I
together.
just have the
So
ideas here.
yeah, no, that's already good. That's most of the work. So you mentioned d4. D4 would be pretty even, also it leads to a nice position. But if we just calculate a few moves further, it would be equal, but I would say that white is kind of losing the initiative a bit by just
Exactly.
making like their own king in danger and just making these pawns doubled. So that wouldn't really be my top choice. And you haven't named the actual move yet, but you had the right
Ah,
collection of ideas. So knight f6 is not working yet, but we can make it better by preparing it with the move is knight g5.
oh yeah. Well, that
I
was
don't know.
yeah, yeah. It's exactly one of the other moves which I would have thought
Yeah,
of course.
I don't know if many people guessed it here because it was a bit out of the blue.
Yeah,
So
but on the other hand, I think black just cannot take.
yeah,
This is not working. This is you're opening the file and there's no piece to defend. And this is always those dangers when you put your knights to e7. I see it so often. No, not always, of course, but
yeah.
yeah, in
Yeah,
those
but normally
examples.
it happens the other way around. Like the knight goes to g5 and then the opponent plays h6 and then you play h4 and not move the knight.
Yeah,
But
true.
this is even like more interesting, I would say. You stand in the attack and you say that they cannot take you. So exactly. On h takes g5, what do we do?
Well, I guess we take back on g5.
We
Ah,
can take
well,
back.
no, we
We can
should.
also do,
Yeah,
huh?
but then g6. Yeah, g6 doesn't help either. I think we
No,
get our
g6, knight
queen.
f6.
Yeah, exactly. That's quicker mate even. So
We
g6
can
doesn't
also
really
do
work.
knight f6, your move that you wanted,
Oh, very beautiful.
and
Yeah,
then bring queen h5.
yeah,
All of
yeah,
this
yeah.
wins.
That's
So
over.
taking this knight is not going to work because the h file is just too strong and the king has no defenders. So instead, black goes knight to d5. And
Yeah,
this at least complicates things a bit. So if black doesn't take this knight, still it's like it's not over, and it's not even like better for white. It's just the knight standing there. It can't be taken, but it doesn't do anything just yet.
oh,
Now, of course, there were a lot of calculations. They're
even
trying to make
scambles.
counterattacks. Pieces are hanging, counterattacks everywhere. The idea is that we want to distract the bishop, and if it happens, then I guess black has their own ideas in the center. So
Mm-hmm.
taking the pawn was not good. White knows where the bishop belongs. The bishop belongs on this long diagonal. It's obvious where the bishop wants to be.
Yes. Well,
So a couple of moves
that
later,
helps. That helps white only.
oh, well, the knight was under attack. So
Yeah, but you couldn't have gone to e7 because now there's another threat with b4 coming up, no?
yeah, that's true. So b4 is a threat. So for this reason, in the game, black played knight b7.
Jeez.
It was way better to do something a bit less passive, for example, like this.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
at least putting the knight on a nicer square and making some more attacks. But instead, knight b7 was played, which was a mistake. I do understand that, like, as a player, you sometimes don't look at your moves from the outside perspective.
Of course, yeah.
You kind of think that, well, you have no choice, I'll just bring it back and then eventually bring it out. But like looking at it like just from the white side, you love to see that move. It's very passive, and it's of course never preferable to do that if you're trying to fight for the initiative.
Absolutely true, of course, yeah.
So once again, if we do want to keep up the initiative, you cannot give up on your kingside attack. So white plays exactly what we've discussed before with queen h5.
Beautiful.
Queen joins the attack, but still the tactics are going to start soon because there's still no checkmate. So that's, I think, where most people like find it difficult to maintain the initiative when there's no sacrifice yet. And
But
what can
this
we
will,
do
well,
in a position like this?
so there's two things comes to mind. It has to be, we have to open the D file now, finally. And I think with d4 to attack a piece, and then we have to try to get our knight somewhere so the bishop can inhale the pawn on h6. And
You have all the right ideas. That's good. So
at least.
white's attack looks good, right? There's three
Yeah.
pieces participating, but there's still no mate, and that's unfortunate, and that's
It is.
means we need to improve. That means we need another piece. So that's why we want to add this bishop, at least potentially, even though not yet, but potentially we now see that this bishop will inhale the h6 pawn. So one problem with d4, though, is that it opens up our king. So for this reason, right after d4, white went castles.
What? Wow.
Not what you expected from d4.
I was expecting king to f1 to leave the rook on h1, but it's probably not even necessary. Yeah, I guess it's more safe to do that.
Yeah, so the thing is that the knight isn't hanging anyway, because this is a checkmate. So we don't really need the rook to support our checkmate anymore.
Exactly. Nice.
So like those are pretty difficult moves, but this is why I would say this is a good example on how to maintain it. So here, although I say that this is like going really, really well, but white did slip up one time in the game, and it was right at this moment. So after f5, they could have developed an even stronger initiative, but that's that's a really difficult skill, and not every move is going to be perfect. So what would you play here as white? What comes to mind?
Yeah, I'm not sure how good the queen g6 is. I mean, I'm threatening, but then the knight will be taken when we take back. So this is why the rook would have been a bit better there after all. But yeah, now out of a sudden f5 is blocking the diagonal for the bishop. And this is probably the more sensible move or sensitive move, is just getting the knight to e6 and then just yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
so that's the move I expected to hear, and that's
Yeah.
probably what would be my first thought as well. So knight e6, it's a second best, so it still makes sense. It doesn't win for white, but it's good, I would say. So we did lose our momentum a bit, but the pawn on e6 is really strong. Black's pieces are a bit disorganized, so white does maintain an advantage, but it's not winning, it's not crazy. That would be fine, better than what white played. But the best move, the absolute best move, was probably difficult to find. It was rook e1. So
that I wouldn't have found.
me neither, it's okay. So the idea is that still it's bad for black to take, because we're gonna take back and then play moves like g6
Oh,
and
g6.
once
Why don't we
again,
see
no
this?
escape. No escape from
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
And if they, if they don't take, now our move with knight e6 gains even more in power because our rook will join. So
Gotcha. Yeah, this
that
is
was the best way
great.
to bring the rook into the attack. That's exactly.
Yeah, the one of
Now,
the
always need more
attacking
pieces.
rules. Come on.
Yeah, always need more pieces whenever you can, whenever you have the time to do it. But White's move in the game was knight f3. So this one kind of loses the advantage a bit, but totally logical, right? It's exactly what we've said before. Once the knight moves, we want our bishop. We're going to open up our bishop. So the next one, after d takes c3, how do you bring it back under your control as white? You'll get this one very quickly. You don't even need to think, probably.
I mean, I would really just take on h6.
And that's best, you see.
Yeah.
So whenever you have this intuition, then it's easy to keep the attack going.
Yeah, I think I also had just too many similar positions where it worked out for white. So I guess, yeah,
Yeah,
that's how it is
that's
sometimes.
yeah. So this is definitely the way to keep it up. You cannot really give your opponent breaks to do whatever they want. So this did cost white 2 pawns, though. Now we cannot keep sacrificing the rook. Let's just bring the rook to e1 where it wanted to go. Although maybe there were other options.
Yeah,
But
so I'm thinking of queen going to g6, knight to g5. That's rough.
Yeah. But the thing there is that queen
No!
e6. What?
The queen on a1 would... Oh, this
Yeah.
is so crazy.
Queen on a1 would
Oh
defend against
my
the checkmate.
goodness, yes. Well,
It would be pretty unfortunate.
that is funny. I mean, yeah, does it hold? Yeah, well, the queen can give a check on f1 as well, and then the black queen could sacrifice itself on g5 for the knight, and then
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like, even here, you could
Yeah.
sacrifice one queen and then keep the other, maybe.
Yes, exactly.
In the worst case, right? So
Wow, crazy. Yeah, that
yeah.
is good to understand. Yeah, this is where I might have then again made a mistake and lost the whole game if it would be this position. Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
very good
so
move too.
just saving the rook is normal. And then queen f6. So black still defends. And what do we do with this bishop?
Well, what do we do? I guess it can just go back one spot, or can we already be more brutal? If we
We
just
cannot really be more brutal, but we can reposition it to a better place.
yeah,
What you said with bishop g5 actually would be a bad idea because queen f7 and we are forced
we're
to trade
forced
queens.
to trade. That's not okay.
And that's not one of the attacking
So
rules.
it has to be d2 then.
Yep, so bishop to d2. And with this idea, the bishop can go to the long diagonal.
Mhm.
Exactly on the next move.
Well,
The
that's
the
actually
whole
really
plan.
crazy.
The whole plan here is that the bishop is untouchable because of knight g5,
Yeah.
the idea that we've brought up many times. And the queen is not there in time to play queen h6.
Nice.
So instead, black plays queen h6. And this is the final, most interesting moment of the game. There's only one winning move for white, and that was kind of the highlight and the beauty of this game.
Huh. Well, then let me think for a second for you at home, of course, as well, if you haven't seen the game already. Now, this looks, yeah, it looks like it's a forced queen trade, but there has to be more in it. Huh. But how? So if we take. Oh, that's really interesting. I would imagine if I only have like 3 minutes left on the clock, I would probably panic and just swap the queens. That wouldn't be nice, would it?
No, swapping queens is what would finish the attack and
Yeah.
leave you without a pawn.
Yeah.
Not that bad, but still.
So how can we? There's no checks? This is annoying. Can't we just give a nice? Okay, I have a plan. I'm not sure if it's working. It probably isn't working. Maybe it is working. What if it would work? So, so this rook on. My cat goes crazy right now. The position is too hot on the
Intense.
board. So how about we? Oh, it's not working. No, I don't want to delay for too long. Unfortunately, I cannot find it. I thought about rook. It's crazy.
Well, I think you're it's right.
No. Oh, it is.
So why are you doubting yourself?
Yes, because I didn't. So rook e7. Let's quickly end it.
Just cut out that part
Yeah,
and confidently say rook e7.
Yes, don't answer the.
So
That's
rook e7,
awesome.
exactly. This is the only winning move. And basically, there was nothing you could do to save your queen, right? You could trade it, or you can sacrifice it.
Yeah.
So there were no other retreating options.
True.
And this is the best one. So if we do take like this, like the variation you talked about, it would be equal. You wouldn't lose, but you would like give up your attacking.
So it's not working because black has enough time to rearrange. Like this, black cannot take, of course, because it would be mate. But so if
they did take in the game, though.
Yeah,
what
of
else
course.
can they do?
No, but what would happen if white takes on h6 and then goes to e7 with the rook?
Rook f7, I think.
Just rook f7, right?
Yeah.
And why did rook f7 not happen in the game?
Because there's queen here.
Oh, thank you. Okay,
so that's a big difference, right? So now, no matter what, we can even take that queen and play rook g7 now. So the game was even nicer.
Wow.
The opponent took on h5, and this tactic comes in full effect. I don't know what it's called in English, but in Russian we call it the windmill.
Yes.
Yeah, that's in English as well.
I think it is called the windmill, yeah.
And it means that it goes that it repeats itself. So basically this rook can go anywhere.
Yeah.
And then, or like it can take anything on like the 7th rank and then repeat itself by like coming back to the same.
Yeah. If white really wants to be super annoying, it will start with rook f7 then
Yeah.
rook e7, then rook d7, and so on.
Well, there is like a slight detail though, is that so you could definitely win back the queen like this. You could do that. It's still winning for white, but it's like it's an endgame. Like there's no like mate right now.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Maybe there is, but like it's not that clear. So it was better not to win back the queen. That wasn't the point anyway. We want more than the queen.
Yeah.
So
we
they
take
went
on
to,
D, we take on C, we take on B, we take on A.
that's ideally what we would do, but black has one like the only escape from the windmill is
Of
one more is that they sacrifice the rook. So if the rook stays there, then yes, for sure. If the king just goes back, then we'll keep doing it all on
Forever.
all of the
Yeah.
7th rank. But they do have an escape with rook f6.
That's nice, true.
Like this. And the king goes to f8. But still, we have a lot of pieces to keep the attack going. It might not look that clear, but it is that clear
looks
because
very clear, yes.
the knight just joins in, and there's checkmate after just a couple of moves. They even decided to take the pawn because they could.
Wow.
And knight h7 with a checkmate. I thought that was a really nice game, and this windmill sacrifice, not something you see too often.
No.
And it was a good demonstration as well from the white side on how to start the initiative and how to maintain it and how to make all your pieces participate in the attack.
Absolutely. That was so much fun to have this lesson with you. Still, Jergus Pechac, I don't know him, but I appreciate that he's trying the King's Gambit and an opening like this for black. So I really hope he keeps on with those openings and gets a couple of points. So that would be my wish for the rest of the tournament. For you at home, thanks for tuning in. Hope you had as much fun as we did. We see each other soon again. Bye-bye.